Yeah.
What's up?
You may not recognize me right now, Gianni, because
No.
this is a holy cow. I don't even recognize myself when I'm looking at that right there. Man, hang on. I'm going to check and see. Let me see if that's really me. Yup, that's me. It's not going away.
Yeah,
But,
you obviously haven't been getting haircuts and everything from my dad recently.
no, man, if I pulled this off, your dad, Frank, would have a heart attack. What's going on under this
Well,
hat?
actually, that's a good idea then, because he's been watching all these. I can't hear with the headphones here. Yeah, I'm like, I haven't. There's a lot of noise in the background there. Is that me or?
It's not me. I don't have anything. I'm just in my office. It's quiet here.
Oh, okay. It's quiet here too. Yeah, no, I have my parents watching this because they watch the news too much. They listen to everything that's going on. So I tell them just to get in with these chats, and it's a lot better for them. You know, it's a little bit of like a healthy getaway.
Well, if they're watching, hey, Grippo family, I miss you guys. I hope everybody is good. I saw the ice cream Saturdays the other day. I gave Gianni some trouble about that, just making sure he's not taking in too many calories without the training. But yeah, definitely I'm missing the old days right on, right off Fairlawn Ave right there. But hey, I hope everybody is doing good. And hey, today for everybody listening, as much as we're going to stay positive and we're going to try to keep everything fired up, we're not going to ignore for a second that I know people around the world, in particular in some of the hot zones still with the virus and everything else, as we are coming out of this, it's been this incredible challenge, and that challenge continues. So here's a cool explanation you'll like about the beard, though, Gianni. When I grew up in New Jersey, I played ice hockey. And ice hockey in the 1980s, one of the original things that was invented was called the playoff beard. And the playoff beard was, if a team made the playoffs, they didn't shave until they were either out or they won the championship. And the day that I got pushed inside, which is now like over 80 days ago, I said I am not shaving until this is over. But here's the thing. Some people might say, oh, it's just a tradition. No. What I learned from those great athletes was every day when you see yourself in the morning and every night before you go to bed, it's your reminder that this battle isn't over yet. You're still in it, and you are still competing right now, no matter what. And that's how I feel this is, that even though some places are starting to go out again a little bit more, man, until we're hopefully kind of back, I just thought it was going to be sooner than later, but now I got to figure out how to keep this thing going right now.
You're gonna be making like you're gonna be like braiding it and everything.
No, look, I'll start trimming it a little bit better before then. But definitely, if everybody knows me from my social media, this is not a common look for me right now. So this is the COVID-19 look. But I don't know. Like, I think, hey, today for anybody listening, if you want to ask questions too, and Gianni can throw some out, but I think we can talk about starting, Gianni, just our really interesting history that we have that a lot of people may not know about. What do you think?
All right, no, that sounds good to me. You can take over this interview. You're the one that's
all right.
getting it now.
Hey guys, so Gianni and I are both from New Jersey. And it's interesting, but once I started working at a company called the Parisi Speed School, where we were kind of pioneering sports performance, if you will. If you've heard those terms before, we were pioneering that. And the facility was in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, meaning it started smaller. And then we did this great facility in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, which, if anybody doesn't know Gianni's history, Gianni is from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And when I bought my first house, because I knew I was going to be committed to that company in 1999, I also moved to Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And it's pretty interesting that facility not only became a hotbed, and Gianni knows this. I mean, there were it was the who's who of jiu-jitsu and the who's who of mixed martial arts was training there. And we were pioneering the concepts of training. So much stuff that we see today that people do that sometimes they act like, oh, wow, this is really fresh. Check out all this cool training stuff for jiu-jitsu. Man, we were cutting our teeth to that 20 years ago. And Gianni was one of the original guys there when he was just a little kid. So as I remember Gianni, which also I think this is interesting, I lived on a street called Floral Ave, which was less than a block away from Gianni, where Gianni grew up. So we lived a few houses away from each other, and I was there for 16 years until now. You know, I moved a handful of years ago to now we live in North Carolina. But until then, Gianni and I were training together all the time, in many ways, almost workout partners, if you will. And, you know, which we have some really crazy stories that we'll talk about, some of the training things we did. But Gianni's dad would cut my hair in his basement, which I never understood, because his dad Frank would cut my hair in his basement, but there'd be like my hair going all over in their basement, and I'd always be like, man, I wonder, like, there's gotta be a better way that I'm not like wrecking their basement every time we're doing.
They've been in the business for so long. They know how to clean it up. They know how to like take care of it. Yeah.
But so what I want everybody to understand as we start this is, hey, it's been such an incredible ride. Not only say the growth of strength and conditioning to watch it, but to watch Gianni, who in many ways I don't think people understand, you know, at our academy where he was the pioneer. There was no other little kid. He was the first one that was ever training. Everybody knew him. And for everybody listening too, when people ask me, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, Gianni, but when people ask me, of all the athletes, Martin, the Olympic gold medalists, the world champs, UFC guys, NFL, who's the most disciplined athlete you ever trained? And guys, it's not even like close. The most disciplined, the most focused, the most structured, the best student has always been Gianni Grippo. And it's kind of interesting that we ended up living so close near each other, yet I got an opportunity to actually see, you know, him from white belt to black belt world champ, which is pretty incredible. And I'll hopefully give away some of those secrets, but other stuff. So here's another thing that sticks out in my head. While I was getting my haircut in his basement, guys, Gianni used to cut weight in my tub at my house when I was pioneering hot water immersion techniques. And he was like a kid cutting weight in my house, which I guess some people might think is crazy, but I guess we were pretty close enough that I guess it was okay for him to be in his underwear, like in my house, and we're in the same room or something. But then we would go to tournaments and remember we'd be like mastering the cut where you'd be like heating yourself up in my car, like, you know, because Gianni couldn't even drive yet. And so it's just incredible, like some of the stuff that comes back now that I think about. But I want everybody to understand it's not like, hey, Gianni's interviewing this either jiu-jitsu guy or fitness guy that he kind of knows or doesn't really know, but I did something in the industry. We have, if we added up the hours that we spent together just training alone, it would be pretty phenomenal. But that goes back to Gianni's discipline, because every bit of training he did with me, I bet it might almost be 10 times as much training in jiu-jitsu, which, by the way, is how you get great at jiu-jitsu, which we'll talk about today. But guys, so when you listen to Gianni, there are a few people that have probably logged the hours, eaten the meals, focused on every aspect of his discipline, you know, not just the sport itself, but also, hey, and I think it's really great too to have watched him graduate high school and go to college, and, you know, and have professors that I knew that I had to tell them, hey, do you know who you have in your class, man? And so it's just been again, an interesting ride. And unfortunately we're connecting like this right now because of what's happening. But I wanted to give everybody some insight in that, because if you just started following Gianni, like, guys, you have no idea like what it has taken to get to this point, and what he has invested, and the amount, again, of discipline and consistency that he has shown now for a couple of decades that I've known him. It's crazy. So starting off with that, I think, is pretty good.
Thank you. Starting off with a bang right there.
How about this then, Gianni? What do you think? Like, so what are some of your earliest memories from the physical training aspect? Like, I remember there was a time when you were starting with us, you were swimming. You know, I know, you know, man, you were just trying everything to get better. But what do you think of what was it like when we were pioneering a lot of the training, and there'd be like all these famous black belts like coming in and out all the time, and you'd be in there with us, you know, meaning particularly at Parisi's. Like, what did you think about that?
Man, those first few summers where I was able to train with you guys, like when I was out of school, it was like I was starstruck because everyone was there. The Miller brothers, Frankie Edgar, Shaolin, Ricardo Almeida, Igor, Hollis, Gregor, yourself. I'm sure I'm missing people as well. I just
Oh, there
remember
was
being,
well, hey, it was endless the number, but I have pictures. It's pretty funny. I've got photos like Forrest Griffin would show
yeah,
up, and you'd
yeah,
just like be in the session, there too. And it wasn't just the fighting guys. Remember, we'd be training with the Sims family and all those NFL Combine guys, and so many people, a bunch of guys from the New York Giants and Jets, and
yeah.
and it was really interesting because again, you were this kid but getting to be there with everybody else. So I was just seeing what you thought. Yeah, like I would have never thought you were starstruck, I guess, but it was just this like golden time in training that was crazy.
Well, I mean, I remember that you were like at that time like a hot item. A lot of people wanted to work with you there. So for me, like I was just honored to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I really was starstruck. That first summer, especially, I remember being like, "What the hell am I even doing here?" I'm just this scrawny 16-year-old who's awkward as shit. What am I doing here? But I guess I guess you were able to see something in me that you saw because anyone could join that, but there's a reason why you allowed a 16-year-old kid that just does jiu-jitsu, is not it's still a growing sport at that time, be able to jump in with you guys.
Yeah.
So I get, yeah.
Well, remember, you had proven yourself on many levels at that point. And I think this is pretty interesting, but also a sad memory that's coming back to me. So for everybody listening, Gianni, I can remember when he got like a cell phone. He was just a kid, and then he finally got a cell phone, and I would have to call him to tell him when training would be, because training was moving around a lot. And Gianni's right, where sometime I was in demand, or I was traveling a lot of times too. Like I might be in Japan for Pride or Europe presenting. So our sessions would move in terms of time throughout the week. And but whenever I would leave him a message, and I told him he should never change it, but now I know he has because I've left it. But it would go, he left this message forever, and his voicemail would go, "Hey, this is Gianni Grippo, and leave me a message after me. I hope everything's okay." And it's just, I guess it's just funny because talking to you now. So how old are you now?
28 now.
Yeah. So I mean, now here's what's crazy. When we started training together, I'm the age you are now.
No way. You
And
look so much older.
and that's what's pretty nuts is no, because hey, now I'm, I guess I was like right around turning 30, so maybe a couple years older is where you were, but meaning how I'd already met you. And it's just crazy that almost 20 years, and it's just, yeah, but I still remember that message when you were a little kid. But it's like, hey, but what's the sign? And here's maybe a great lesson for everybody listening. When you're training, sometimes maybe it's like, what's this for? Or I could take a day off, or I could take it easy on this rep, or this meal, it doesn't matter. But what I will share, and I think a big theme that should happen to get today, of those words like discipline, or those words like consistency. Guys, 20 years from now is going to happen. And you get to decide who you are going to be according to the things you either did or you did not do, and how disciplined and consistent you can stay over time. And here's what I will say. It's pretty interesting. Like, hey, guys, and this is not a shot at Gianni, but like, hey, Gianni is not a physical mega freak. Like, Gianni, you're not if somebody would have seen you when you were a kid, they wouldn't have said, wow, this guy has these incredible strength or power gifts, or
I'll never forget in high school, I think the wrestling coach saw me while I was in gym class, and the gym teacher knew I was like, competing in jiu-jitsu, and he just looked at me and he said like, "Oh, that kid's an athlete."
But that's the thing. So nothing from the outside would have said it. And what I'm sharing with everybody today for the courage, but also the secret to mastery and why you've done what you've done is, number one, you started. And then, man, you just put in the work and you never stopped. You never, there weren't either breaks, and whether it was injury, whether it was other things, it just that is the biggest secret, that time is going to happen and who you will become at the end of that will be what you did and you didn't do. And so for anybody listening, no one could say, oh man, it's not fair. Gianni won this gold, or Gianni won that, or Gianni won this. No. It's exactly fair, baby, because you didn't do the stuff Gianni did for the last 20 years. So you're going to have a very hard time competing against him, which, hey, is just giving away that secret. But for anybody that says, oh man, well then, okay, I didn't do it yet. Well, hey guys, 20 years from now is still going to happen too. It's still going to happen, right? Like, hey, and whether it's you're trying to achieve a black belt, whether it's you're trying to whether you're trying to write a book, no matter what it is, over that period of time, that stuff, if you keep chipping away, great things are going to happen. And you're the ultimate example of that, Gianni, where it came down to every meal, every practice, every workout. I'm always following you. I see that, like, you are just always training. And guys, not just training, but here might be another secret, and maybe you can talk about some of the things I'm saying, Gianni, or expound on it. But I would say not just training. Like, it's not just that you've put in the mat time, but the amount of drilling that you have done during the mat time, I think few people either are prepared to do or have the discipline to do. So what do you think about that?
Man, I just always noticed what a difference it made, and I was aware of how I was getting better at doing that by doing a lot. So it was just something that, like, I felt like the more I did, the better I was going to get. Man, I keep hearing myself. There's like an echo here, so don't mind if I'm like pausing. No, so yeah, I just always believed, learning from you, learning from my dad, who always worked hard in whatever he did, that I had to do more than what was expected of me. I never liked being told what to do and then just doing just that. I always wanted to do more. So if someone would tell me to drill once a day, I would want to drill twice a day, because the competition is doing what their coaches say. They'll do exactly that. So then I always felt like I had to do that extra step. And to be honest, like, all these years later, what I've come to the realization is that it's not just for physically being ready. To be honest, I've probably done way more training than I needed to all these years, but it was a mental thing where I was like, when I go into those tournaments, where I go into those matches, like, man, there's nothing else I could have done. I am more than prepared for this. So I always felt like that was more of like kind of a mental thing, more than physical. Physical, I've even noticed I can keep doing just what my coaches say, because I believe in my coaches, and my coaches know what's best for me. But it's more of that mental thing. Having that little extra, putting in an extra. You go into the tournament with like that, like, no one has done more than me at this point. So I think it's more of that.
Now here's a question then, and this might be the big question that I think I've always thought about, and you know my kids, and they were really little kids when they were around you.
I see they're so big now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I have pictures where they're hanging on your legs and you're walking around in the house. And here would be the biggest question, though, because obviously, hey, I know your family. We would talk about your brother, where, hey, your brother didn't try to become a jiu-jitsu star or to achieve like you did, and travel, and just all the competitions and how much you've competed. And I guess the ultimate thing, which I guess I probably asked you before, but maybe you couldn't have put your finger on it then because you were so young, but what do you think it is from like what is it inside of you, if you were going to describe it in a word, or what is it that has kept you driven so long? Like, what is it that keeps you going to go and practice again, keeps you going to drill again, keeps you going to eat right and to do everything else? Like, what is that? Because it has to come from within. Nobody made you do it, you know? So like, what would you say? I don't know. See if you can describe it or something. Because in a weird way, I think that is what separates you. But it's like, okay, what is it? Or what do you even call it?
Man, I don't know. I think when you do it for so long and you're pretty much born into it, it feels like it's a little bit harder to explain. Maybe if you inherited that later on in life as an adult, you kind of understand, kind of formulate how you got these feelings. But for me, it was just so natural. I've always been so competitive in everything I do. But I've even noticed over the years that I've kind of morphed from like being this competitive person to just wanting to have self-improvement every day. And I feel like that's been almost healthier in a way, where I'm not focused on like sometimes the tournaments that I can't control. Sometimes I can't control the results. There's outside things that I can't I can't control the reps. I can't control how my opponents are training. There's just certain things that, are out of my reach. So I've kind of taken the focus and the drive to just focus on improving in every day and trying to get better in any way that I can. Improving a technique, improving, all aspects of my training. I've noticed over the years that I've taken a sports psychologist as like a coach. I've taken a nutritionist. I've taken a strength conditioning coach. Sorry, Martin, I miss you. I miss our workouts.
Hey, it's my fault. I'm the one that left, man. So,
But just all these different ways to kind of find improvements. So it's funny. It used to be all driven on being competitive, and that competitiveness is still there. But it's kind of changed over the years into something I feel like is almost a little bit healthier, where I'm just focused on improving, and then making those small improvements will lead to those results that I want.
Yeah. Well, hey, one thing, and why we're distilling this out for everybody listening is, hey, I do believe, and you hit the right word right off the bat, is competitiveness. And you know me, having us trained for together so long, somebody asked me in an interview recently, and they said, what's your biggest weakness? And it's funny because listen to how this is going to go. And do you know what I said? I said, my biggest weakness is my competitiveness. And what I meant by that was, it's like, I just want to, like, everything that I do, I want to win, I want to succeed. And it's such a great driver. But at the same time, like you said, sometimes you lose focus, or, hey, you'll do, I don't know, like maybe offend somebody to win, or hurt yourself to win, or something like that, versus seeking the improvement. And it's the same thing that what I've really come to see, and what I use even with my own kids now, and it's what you were saying, but listen to this, it's effort over winning. And you see how, so here's what I would say. And I know this is easier to say than it is to live, but say you had a world championship final and you competed better than you have ever competed, and everything was you just felt like you couldn't have done it more perfect, and you couldn't have been more prepared, but yet, and then imagine you lose on an advantage, like then you should be okay with that, because you delivered incredible effort, versus now imagine you win the gold, but you were completely unprepared and lucked out and everybody else was weak.
So can I tell you, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But my most, I've actually been watching a lot of older matches, kind of back in the days when we were training together, when I was a brown belt. My first year of brown, I made it to the finals at Worlds, and I lost right at the very end. I got my guard passed. I lost 3-2. And it was even a match where my opponent said, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have gotten the points for the guard pass." I didn't want to hear that, because that made it even worse. But I lost. Whatever. I was super proud of that. That was probably one of my most proud tournaments, because I came back from the reminisce. I came back from not feeling my best, but I put in such an effort that day. I had the fire that day to prove something to myself, to prove something to others, that I'm most proud of that second place more than anything. Whereas next year I went on to win Worlds, and it was great, but it wasn't as satisfying almost, because I felt like it was something I was expected to do, and I felt like I coasted. I played the rules right. I didn't do anything extraordinary, but being able to kind of battle through a tough day or a tough couple months and grind through wins was more satisfying, getting that silver, than maybe just a coasting gold.
Yeah. No, well, hey, so, and again, for everyone listening, because remember, that's what we're trying to do today, is hopefully everyone that is out there is a fly on the wall right now. And again, if you have any questions, send them in, and we'll hopefully answer some of those too. But what I would say is, again, if anybody takes any message from there, it's control what you can control. I know a lot of people have talked about that during this quarantine experience. And it's true. Like, so many people, there was so much fear and anxiety, but oftentimes it was over things that you couldn't control. And again, your effort and your hard work, hey, if you know you've done what you can do, I promise you're going to be happy with the result. But I also promise this. Now, the opposite of Gianni would be a guy that never trained much, but always said he wanted to compete and is never ready and doesn't eat right and doesn't do the right things, and then shows up and loses. Well, then, hey, for everybody listening, and I know this doesn't sound fun, but I'm playing the coach right now, then you don't get to complain about that. Because if you haven't done the things that it takes to listen, this is a good one. You're going to like it. It's a new one I use. If you have not earned the right to win, you cannot, then don't get upset when that doesn't happen. Right. Like, so, and, and there's there's an amount of work that goes into earning it, which we talked about. Now, here's a great story I have. Speaking of competitiveness, and which will show. Now, guys, Gianni's selling himself short a little. He's always a humble guy where, oh, yeah, competitive, this and that. Well, I don't know how, Gianni, this happened, but when people ask me what are some of the greatest physical feats of training that I ever performed, I've got there's some sprint times, there's certain lifts that I did, but one of the things that I talk about is I say that I did 1,000 push-ups in like 53 and a half minutes. And people go, 1,000 push-ups in 53 and a half minutes? Like, what did you do that for? First they say, why did you do that? And it's funny because it's so long ago, I can't remember. But for everybody listening, there was a period of time I was a push-up maniac. Like Gianni knows, we would do 200 push-ups per warm-up. That was just in the warm-up to get ready to go train.
I forget about that. I forget about that sometimes, but now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh, my chest.
So remember, we would do a sprint, and guys, this is with sprints too. So we would sprint, do 20 push-ups, go back to the line, sprint, 20 push-ups.
That was just a warm-up. Jesus.
Yeah, that was.
No wonder we were there for 3 hours.
So that was, see, Gianni doesn't know, guys, that he was like a guinea pig because I was like figuring everything out. We were doing 3-hour workouts 4 days a week always. So, but the amount of volume that we were doing, and this is what I believed, is our warm-ups were so tough that how is anybody going to beat us when they can't even do our warm-up and then we go work out?
Yeah.
But we got to the point that we were doing so many push-ups and so many different kinds of push-ups that I don't know where we hatched the idea, but I said,
well, you definitely hatched it. I just followed along.
Yeah, well, no, and you were the only
I was
one.
just like, okay, I'll do 1,000 push-ups in
and
an
for
hour.
everybody listening, he was the only one. So we trained for a long period of time, and we started to break it down. How could we do 1,000 in an hour? And we figured out that if we did, I think it was like you did 20 on the minute, and then we rested for the rest of that minute, and we did it again. But after a certain period of time, we moved down to 15, and then you rested the rest, and it added up exactly to 1,000. And, and although that sounds easy for anybody listening, I dare anybody to try to do 20, then rest for the next like 30 seconds, do 20 again, do that for like 20 or 30 sets, and then do another, the rest of the 30 minutes at 15 on the minute. And I'll tell you, I remember we had trained so hard for it, but talking about the competitiveness again, as you and I got close to the end, we were like, man, we can do it in under an hour. Let's pick the number.
I remember this part.
Yeah, let's pick the number back up again. And we started racing at the end. And I'll tell you, my elbows, I was like feeling it. We were banged up, but we had a sheet. So we had like a sheet of paper, and we were checking it all off. And I have a photo of it somewhere. And guys, I'm just sharing the discipline and the inside stuff. We didn't do it on TV. We didn't do it for an award or a medal. But I remember Gianni and I signed off on that piece of paper so that we documented it and we took a picture of it. But again, it was a testament to years and years of work that made that possible. And but again, when it came down to it, we were the only two people that did it, and there were a lot of other people invited. So I just want to say again that says something about, you would attempt and have the drive to do things that a lot of other people didn't do. So remember to never sell yourself short on, oh yeah, I was competitive and now it's just effort. I'm still saying there's something driving you. There's something in there that has motivated you. And I want to say it's more than just, well, you just showed up and there you go. So yes, I will agree that eventually, for anybody listening, if you show up long enough, it becomes a habit, and it will be harder to stop than it is to keep going. But there was something that drove you to do that because, again, and you and I have talked about this, when you were on your journey, again, I don't know if there are other guys that have won the Worlds, Pan Ams, both gi, not gi, at white, purple, white, blue, purple, brown, black. I don't know if anybody else has done that or if that's happened, but you may think it's normal because you're you, but I'm letting you know that's not normal for, or everybody would do it. right?
Well, what I remember from that push-up thing was that I am forgetting the number that we had to do. It was something like 20 for a while, and then we went down to 15. But I think the last set, you put the last two together, so you finished like a minute ahead of me.
I wasn't going to say it because
You just did it,
I
and
wasn't
you're
going to
like,
let Gianni know that, yes, I did at least try to win. And again, that's the worst thing. I told you I'm too competitive, but we
because
both.
you got to write down, you were like 30 seconds or 45 seconds ahead of me, like you son of a bitch.
That, I told you, is like the worst thing about me, where I am just a competitive monster. But what it was is I just wanted to see how fast we could do it at the end. So remember, we were on pace for 60 minutes. We shaved 7 minutes off in there somewhere, which was but again, physically and mentally, that took so much that yeah, those are those kind of things. We never tried that again, you know, like
No.
that was a one and done that now I wish we would have had it on tape. But for anybody listening, we have there are a lot of on YouTube. Gianni was, you know, he told me today he was looking at some of the old ones. We have a lot of the classic videos from a decade ago or more of us all training, doing different challenges, push-up competitions. Remember it was remember when it was judo versus jiu-jitsu we did with you and
Yeah.
Colton and remember it was like push-ups and chin-ups or something. It was just funny. Like, so we had a great time though too as we were pioneering this stuff. But I'll tell you what, I don't think anybody was working, not only, I'll say, as hard, but as smart as we were at that time. And that led to all the books. Like, you know, you're in some of the books. Your photos are in a lot of the books that people have. And all those Gracie magazine articles that I was writing for 20 years, like that, like all that stuff. Every week we had to come up with new stuff. So
Yeah.
you guys were like the guinea pigs of what we were figuring out.
Man, I remember those kind of challenges were what we got you excited to go to the gym.
Yep.
Because I imagine after a while doing the same routine, having the same thing, nothing really new to you know, that competitiveness, that goal to get like those 4 minute push-ups, which turned into like 100 push-ups in like 2 minutes. You even did
Yeah.
after a
Oh
while.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
If anybody goes back and looks at all the challenges, and it wasn't just us, it might have been Frankie Edgar, the Gracies, like the stuff that was happening, like that people were pulling off. But yeah, and it led, here's the other part too. And this is, I guess it's two types of people in, say, jiu-jitsu. You can want to be the competitor, like that's how I was, you know, and that's how you were. Like, hey, if I'm going to do it, I want to compete. I want to test myself. There are people, hey, guys, it's okay to be a lifelong martial artist, and you have never had to have competed, because ultimately, remember, either way, it's about developing yourself. Like Gianni talked about today, it's about your effort. It's about, you know, your honesty with yourself and who you become as a result of that martial art. So whether you like to compete or not, but what I will say is, for us, that competition gave you something to strive for and gave you something to continue to push, both on the mat and in the gym. And man, and we did a lot of it. Like it wasn't easy, like with a lot of the people that were in there, you know?
No, no, not at all. I remember those hurricane sessions as well. We always tried to make them harder at first, or you always found a way to make it harder. I was like, okay, maybe this one will be a little bit easier. No, it's harder.
Well,
But
and though, for everybody listening, now maybe I should be clear too. Hey, I have 3 degrees. I was an orthopedic physical therapist, so I don't want anybody to think that we were just smashing people. Like, one thing I take great pride in is that nobody got hurt when we trained. Nobody got worse. Nobody ever missed a competition or a fight because of an injury, especially that happened in training. So for everybody listening, a piece of the philosophy always is, training should be designed to make you better. Training is not designed to make you tired, which I see a lot of people make that mistake. Training is not designed to injure you or see how much punishment you can take. That's the worst thing you could do. And for all the crazy training that we were doing, hey, there was an attention to nutrition, there was an attention to sleep, there was an attention to breathing. And this is still stuff people act like they're just hearing about the first time, where 20 years ago we were building a deep foundation on all of those aspects. And hey, goal setting. I have a great photo. You're a kid, And remember, we would do that New Year's Eve goal setting workout.
Yeah.
And and in between each set of some really tough exercise, we would write down our goals for the year. We would take pictures of them, sign off on them. So the training, for everybody listening, to be clear, training was, hey, I got my guy Mike right. He goes, well, what about biceps? You still got to train those. And I'm like, yeah, well, of course. Hey, don't forget, Gianni will tell you too, no matter what, we were still trying to look good too. And you'll see this video when Gianni's little. Remember, Gianni had the most ripped abs of anybody. Like, his abs were shredded to the bone. And what is it? You even said it was this one video, and you pull up your shirt.
Oh God, no! The 2 guns and a 6-pack.
Yeah, he's like, I got 2 guns and a 6-pack. And
who told me to say that? I definitely would not have said that myself.
You're a kid, though. I don't know. Yeah, we told you to say that. You wouldn't have said that. But the whole thing is, literally, you're a young teenager. Right in that thing, it's got to be. You're probably.
I was 16.
Yeah, you're 16 years old. So it's almost incredible if somebody watches some of those videos to see who Gianni was then, and then now imagine, a decade or a decade and a half later, and not have missed training, not have missed nutrition, not have missed the right sleep, not, have stayed focused, documented it, written about it, journaled about it. This is all the stuff that he's done. And hey, Gianni, do you know what they call you after 15 or 20 years of doing that?
Call you the best?
Well, yeah, world champ.
World champ.
So that's what they call you. They call you champ for anybody listening. So, hey, if you want the short version of the Gianni Grippo's book, because I've always told you, I've said this to you a lot. I always said you should be documenting everything, and you should write a book of how you did it. But, guys, the short version is start, and then for the next 20 years, don't stop and stay really focused. And
I feel like that's such a key as well. And I think being at Marcelo trains like this, where you're never going through a period where you're like this. Where your training is high intensity and then just drops off if you're not doing any. I always felt like the key for all these years was to always just maintain level.
Yeah.
Always the same pace.
Well, and for anybody listening, remember, that's not just jiu-jitsu. That's your training. That's your sleep habits. That's your nutrition. And see, now watch, look what you said. See, you've stayed like this, and then maybe for a competition, you ramp up a little. Most people are like this. Look, they train for a month or two, don't train for months or two. Got some sleep, didn't get some sleep. And that's over a long period. But then even if you look at those weekly, now watch. Oh, I ate good for 3 days. Now I ate horrible over the weekend. Ate good for 3 days, horrible over the weekend. Oh, got sleep for a couple days in a row, horrible over the weekend. See, if you add that up over time, it doesn't work, no matter what. So consistency, man, is it's such a powerful word, especially, as I get older. Hey, that's been my secret too, where right now, hey, I never stopped training. I'm still training. I'm still the same body weight I was 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And guys, again, the same secret is just been, I don't know, I'm driven inside, and then I just keep doing it. Right. And I don't know, it sounds so simple, but yet it's maybe the hardest thing because most people can't do it. But
what is the motivation for you to be able to practice what you preach mainly, or is it for everyone else, or is it still just solely for yourself?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's for me anymore. And here's the interesting transition. As you know, hey, for anybody listening, I wrote a new book called called Coach to Coach, and it's a parable, and it's about coaching. And what Gianni was talking about is, and I've told him this. Hey, here's an interesting conversation we can talk about, and this one is very important for any athletes listening, even if you're not in jiu-jitsu. But, hey, I have trained Olympians. Some of my closest friends are Olympians and Olympic coaches. And, hey, and I'll be cornering Jim Miller at the UFC next week in Las Vegas. And here's what I will say, but I remember having this conversation with Gianni. And, guys, this shows that Gianni has a heart, too. And I remember there was a time.
Listen to this, people. People don't think I have a heart. Just listen to this.
Yeah, well, listen carefully.
Because a lot of people don't think I have a heart.
Okay, well, Gianni said, hey, hey, there's stuff going on with my family, or there was, sometimes, hey, I've watched guys, Gianni have his first girlfriend, and all these things, and we would always have great discussions. And he was like, and I remember you saying something to the effect of, hey, am I not a good person because I'm so focused on what I'm doing that I'm not like focused on everybody else's lives. I'm not there for everybody as much as I could be there for them. And guys, maybe you would be confused by my answer, but I said, Gianni, you have to be that. If you want to be one of the most successful in the world and you've invested everything that you've done to do this, and I believe you can do this, then when I lived at the Olympic Training Center, those are the most selfish people in the world. So as an athlete, inherently, you have to be selfish. You have to be self-preserving. You have to be worried about you more because that's what you're trying to achieve. And I also told him, but Gianni, someday that will change when you transition from, say, an athlete. Or, hey, students, if you're a student, you have to be selfish. You've got to learn your information. You got to get your degree. You got to do your things. You can't worry about everybody else's problems because you haven't fixed yours yet. Yeah. But there's plenty of time to eventually use all those lessons and all that stuff that you selfishly gained to then give back to everybody else. And then that will be your greatest legacy. But you're still so young. You're 28 years old. It's not time for that yet. When I was 28, I was the most selfish guy. I was learning. I had to learn about me. I didn't have enough yet to give. But now at 48, then you learn all the lessons and all the mistakes you made and you give them back. And I guess what I'm saying is, for everybody listening, guys, if you want to really go for something and you want greatness and you want to be great and that's how they'll know you, then there is going to have to be some concessions that go along with that. And that's hard. And that everybody deals with that. And guys, Gianni was dealing with that and it was tearing him apart. But hey, and as his coach, I had to let him know that, like, man, this is how part of the game goes, right? Like, and I'll tell you, anybody that's a world champ in anything, they are worried when on their way to their world championship, they're worried about that in themselves. They're not worried about like maybe other people at that time. And that may sound, I don't know, I don't want it to sound crazy, but I hope it makes sense, or it's logical that there is a period of time that has to occur. But that will change. And as your goals change and as you've achieved all of those, then it will become about everybody else. And so to answer that question, which you inspired, is when I was younger, everything was about me. It was about what I was learning. It was about who I was becoming. And then when I had children, that really changed me. That was one big part. Or when I got married, that was a big part. And then when I had children, that was a big part. And now if I had to say, why do I do what I do? I do it because I want to inspire everybody else. I want to show everybody else that it works. I want to inspire my kids. I want to be healthy for them and them to remember their dad, just like you did. Like, you know, you would see your dad training or you would see your dad doing triathlons or skydiving. That was such inspiration. But now maybe he's not doing it just for him anymore. He's doing it, you know, to be a role model. And so what I'm describing, I guess, is there is a continuum in life. When you're an infant and a baby, you're the most selfish person in the world. You have to be. What's one of the words a kid learns to say first? Mine, 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 mine. And then as you get older, it's still kind of about you. But then as you continue to age, it changes. And then eventually, someday, the true legacy will be what you left behind and gave to everybody else. And that's why I'm writing books on it now. But 20 years ago, I was selfishly collecting all that information that I could someday share. So the short version of it is, hey, is it about me now? No, it's about my Training for Warriors network and all the people that it's helping. It's about all the people that read my blogs and the podcasts and are on this now. And it's about my kids and my family, so that I still try to be this gold standard for them to inspire them to be great too. But I would be lying if I said I either thought like that or felt like that. And for anybody listening, if you're still on your path to achieving greatness, if it ever tears you up, like, oh, am I doing the right thing? If you believe that greatness can someday go on to help tons more people, then keep pursuing it. And look, Gianni, like right now, although you're still a competitor and still an athlete, look at all these lives you're doing and all this information that you're sharing. Do you see how you're giving back? That already shows that the transition is happening, because if you only cared about yourself and everything else, you'd actually never really be sharing it all. You'd be hiding it all. And that's the real selfishness. But the amount of content that you're always giving away and trying to help, hey, has it not increased since you were younger?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
so the transition has begun, my man. And you know, and again, and that's where I've always just been further, 20 years further down the line than you, where I'll always be ahead. But you're hey, where you are at 28, I'll give you this props too. You're way ahead of where I was in terms of what you do in the world and what you've experienced, where I like to say at like 28 was where I was just getting started, which is pretty interesting.
So I guess you say it's not so much about what you say, but also it's not so much what I've said, but the action that I put or the effort that I put into what I do can kind of, inspire others and provide, information for others more than anything.
Yeah. Well, and it's the lessons that you'll learn. Like you have, here's a great example, and hey, T Bravo just said, yeah, when you have a baby, you definitely have changes. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And for everybody listening, I didn't get married till I was 30, and I didn't have my first kid till I guess I was like 32. So like that also, Gianni, you're in no rush right now for that, but here's what I will say about the action. Hey, say you and I were going to climb Mount Everest, right? And we were one of the first people to ever do it. We would have to be incredibly selfish in our training and our determination and what we do. On that way up that mountain, you're not worried about anybody else, right?
Yeah.
And but when you came down with all the lessons of how you did it, do you think that would be valuable?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, for the last like 15, 20 years, you've just been climbing that mountain. And you're still climbing. But once you've either there'll be this day when you say, you know what, man, I've reached this summit or this peak, something that I imagined, and I'm just going to continue to now bring back down all the lessons from the mountain. That is when the true greatness will come through. And for anybody listening, it's our responsibility to do that. Right. So again, like this book, if I would have kept this inside of me and not shared all these lessons of how I could help more people, help more other people, that would have been my most selfish act instead of sharing. And maybe that word, which is really big, man, I wasn't always great at it, but now it's what I always do. So you were like, hey, you want to get on a live and let's just share? Yeah, absolutely. When do we do it? And but maybe 20 years ago when we were pioneering stuff and I thought it was all ours and no one knew it. But look, the books that I've released and all the other things, we showed everybody what to do. And here would be a great example. Here's a great one. And this will be powerful for anybody listening that's in the fight game. I was pioneering, and guys, I was getting a lot of scientists involved, doctors. We were trying to pioneer how to more safely cut weight. When I got involved with the game, and hey, I wrestled when I was growing up, you put on plastic bags and you ran yourself to death for hours and hours and starved yourself for days in hopes of making weight. And here's a good thing, a question to ask, and anybody listening, because this could change the world. And the question is, there's got to be a better way than this. Like, there's got to be something better than this. Yeah. And that was the question I was always asking, whether it was training, but in particular, weight cutting. Now, weight cutting moved from the suits, then it moved to the sauna, right? And you'd be like, okay, I got this sauna now, I can really heat up. But then I noticed, man, that's torturing guys too. And sometimes it would take forever or the sauna wouldn't get hot. And then even when we were doing that, I said, well, okay, now that we've lost all that weight, what's the best way to rehydrate? What's the safest way to rehydrate? How can you do that? And man, I was getting a lot of medical professionals involved. And I started to notice that the medical profession and the martial arts profession didn't cross, right? It was like there was information out there, but our people didn't know it. And we were really hurting people and it was dangerous. And then that evolved from, hey, and there was There were IVs. I was experimenting with a lot of things. I got taught from a lot of professionals, which now I don't, now there's a lot more science in there and better people, or in many ways it's banned now in the UFC and different stuff. But then we were pioneering hot water immersion, different things. And here's the thing. I would say over that 20-year span, I definitely helped push forward a safer way, an easier way, and a better way to cut weight that would make fighters healthier, and that also would give fighters a better opportunity to perform better when they had to perform. And I had that way up to a certain point when I wrote the book Warrior Cardio. And I was faced with a choice, and this goes back to the story about sharing. I wrote a book called Warrior Cardio. I did not have to put the current weight cutting information in there. It would have actually been easier not to, and my athletes would have all had a greater advantage if I didn't. But every person that would have read that book that didn't get that information, and maybe one person that cut weight dangerously and, hey, had a bad event, or even scarier, somebody died. That's what I was telling myself, that if I didn't share this information and that happened to someone out there because they didn't at least have what I had then available, that would have been on me. And so then I did put that information out there. And I'll tell you what, over the years, I've had thousands of people in the fight game write me, but so many people have written me about cutting weight properly. So many people have written me about nutrition, all the stuff that I put out there that I never thought would have been the big stuff. Like, yeah, people wrote about push-ups and hurricanes, but when people would write and say, man, how I cut that weight changed everything for me, or how I was able to still eat and cut weight, or it was really rewarding. But what I'm saying there is, guys, I had to be selfish to learn it, but then I would have been even more selfish not to share it.
Yeah.
And so someday, guys, you will not be measured by your medals and the belts around your waist. You're going to be measured by the lessons that you learned, that you shared, and helped somebody else as a result of it. And Gianni's a little behind me on that journey still, but I'm pretty proud of watching how you are doing this every week and taking the bull by the horns to share it. So I think, and hey, we didn't know where this was going to go today. Like, guys, this is unscripted, but
are you sure? You sound like you always sound like you have things very well scripted, very well put together.
No, I think this is the easy stuff that comes out because it's the truth,
I remember that time when you had me do the weight cut, or when I was cutting the weight in your house.
And we did it a bunch of times, it wasn't just once, in this scalding hot tub in my house. And guys, we were learning things, that tubs aren't that big. Maybe the water doesn't get that hot. That's a risky, I've been to fights, in big fights, where we would get somewhere, Gianni, and the tub in the hotel doesn't get that hot to protect you. And then now that way doesn't work, or something else. So, man, I could talk just on stories like that for an hour,
Well, I remember at least one of them that we did went really well, where I think I lost 7 pounds in an hour.
Oh,
that was the first time I did it.
Yeah.
So I was skeptical. I was like, what? I couldn't believe that so well. But after an hour of doing that, maybe 20 minutes, I lost about 6 or 7 pounds.
Yeah. Well, and for everybody listening, hey guys, nothing. Gianni knows. Why did I train so hard with them, and why would I ever do those things on them? It's because I did it on myself a whole lot before I ever tried anything with anybody else. So I knew the weight cut was going to work because I had done it on myself a dozen times before I would dare to have Gianni as a kid in my house cutting that weight for a big tournament. But not only did I know it would work, but and did he sweat off those 7 pounds on my tile floor in my bathroom in Fairlawn? But I think that's important too, guys, is there was some real science behind what we were doing, but this wasn't like experimentation and we didn't know what was going on. I could never
You had to do a lot of research before.
Well, and take the risk myself. and really see if this stuff would work. But yeah, but of course you would be skeptical the first time. You'd be like, oh, don't I need a suit, or don't I need to starve myself for days? And man, you remember that? It was like boom, and it was already gone, and you felt fantastic. And that was a big part of, I don't know, but pushing the envelope in what we did for so long. But again, the lesson for everybody listening is, but once we learned it, you got to share it. So like, what's the sense if you get all this great stuff and you take it to the grave with you? Like what was the value then,
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I like that. It all kind of ties back into, selfishness or being non-selfish to that point. Yeah, I like that.
No, well, it's pretty interesting. So you got to be selfish until the most selfish act would be to then keep it to yourself. And that's when you become selfless, when you give it away. So that's actually the big discovery today on the Gianni Grippo Live. Because I don't know about you, but I know it might only be like 3 minutes left and then it cuts us off. So was there anything, and hey guys, let Gianni know if you liked this, if you like this one and you want to hear from me and him again, because I can't believe an hour just went by. I don't even feel like there is so much stuff we could cover more. If people have questions or people have stuff that we could do this again, and it would, again, we could just fill. Today was like us catching up almost more than anything else,
Your memory is so good too. You remember everything. There's things that I forgot. Like, you just bring it all back for me.
Yeah. Well, no, hey, I don't know. Like, one thing I've been blessed with is a great memory where, I think, hey, and remember this, in neurology, when you're memories that get laid down the most powerfully, like I guarantee, do you remember finishes of certain world championships and gold medals you've won? And absolutely. And why? Because it's an emotional event and there's activity, and your brain loves to lay down those memories permanently. And you know what? That's what we were doing all the time. That's why I remember those push-ups. That's why I remember that training. That's why I remember watching the competitions. And hey, for everybody, here's one that I remember clearly, which is so long ago. I was in a tournament. So yes, I did compete in jiu-jitsu too. Gianni's not the only guy that did that, but I never aspired to his level. But I was in a pretty solid tournament and in a final. And I was the guy was all over me, kept attempting leg locks, knee bars. But I was escaping. I want to believe on my strength. It wasn't technique. And then I remember, man, I got his back and I finished him right at the end. And the first face I saw when I finished him, I just hit the mat. And I was so pumped. And there was little Gianni, couldn't probably been 10 years old, sitting right on the side edge of the mat, clapping. And it was weird because I felt like I couldn't lose in front of him, because it would have been I don't know, like, as trying to also be his coach, that would have been a bad thing, I think, at that time, to have lost. So I always, I remember that one clear as day, but know that, hey, you were inspiring me then and you're still inspiring me now, which I think is pretty cool.
No, it's mutual. It's mutual there as well. It goes both ways for sure. This talk was inspirational for me. It was almost like I need to hear these pep talks before I compete. I need to hear you. I'm just gonna call you before I compete every time.
Well, hey, we did that not that long ago.
You need those positive reinforcement. And man, I wish we could talk more about it. I would love to talk more about your book too.
Yeah.
But one thing that I loved, real quick, we have like a minute, it'll cut us off. But I just love the talk about positivity and I am proud of you and those things. And those are the things that I never really thought about as much. You kind of think about being that tough coach, that one who would just be able to correct all the mistakes. But being able to be positive with someone, being able to be encouraging, I feel like is super important. And it was really well laid out in this book. And
yeah,
I wish we could talk about that more.
Well, before it goes off, hey, everybody listening, you got to get Coach to Coach. It's on Amazon. It's an easy read. There's an audio version too. You will love it. And Gianni's name is in the back too. So he
is.
Yeah, so, the acknowledgments go out there. But hey, if everybody enjoyed this, because I don't know when it's going to cut off, let Gianni know about it. And if you got other questions, that could help us form another episode, and we do this one again. So if you want to know what does it take to be a world champ, you want to know more about training, 18 seconds, whatever it takes, you got to do it. So Gianni, finish us off. What do you got?
I just want to say thank you. That's it.
Now,
do it again.
Now, so my pleasure. And guys, I hope everybody stays safe and strong.